Hi and welcome back to Mysteries channel. So yesterday I was doing a video on the clown insurance agency and how they are quite possibly the cabal that we speak of, and if they are not the very cabal that we speak of, then they are the henchmen for the cabal. And while I was doing research on, all their disgusting practices, I came across a name that I was familiar with, a name that I was familiar with in a completely different way, and I only heard this name once before, but the name stuck with me. And the name of the person is Noam Chomsky. How did I ever hear of Noam Chomsky? Well, when I was in middle school, I used to come home from school, and before I could do anything, I had to get my homework done. So I would get my homework done, and while I was doing it, I would be listening to PBS. PBS was great programming, I believed, because you could learn Japanese, ichi ni san shi go, or you could watch some Nova, and they always had something interesting on, or every once in a while they would have a lecturer on that would throw knowledge at you that you were just like, shit, I never would have come up with that myself. That's a great idea. And that's what this guy did. What he got me with was his theory that you could use linguistics to go backwards through time to learn all the things that, are mysteries today, and how you could chase language to figure out genetics, civilization, and where it all began, where it really all began. And I thought, wow, that's great. That's fascinating stuff. The guy's name was Noam Chomsky. Stuck with me because I thought, wow, that's brilliant. Who knows? Anyway, yesterday, I'm looking up the Iran-Contra deal. I come across this guy's name again. Once you've heard it, you know you've heard it. So I was like, God, could it be the same guy? It's got to be, right? So I went and I looked him up. Turns out it's totally him, Noam Chomsky. Now, who is he? Well, Noam Chomsky, he's an American linguist, philosopher, cognitive scientist, historian, social critic, political activist. He is sometimes called the father of modern linguistics, and he is also a major figure for analytical philosophy, as well as the founder of the field of cognitive science. Now, why would I hear about this guy looking up Iran-Contra? Well, it's because he was a political activist, and back in the 70s, he was very vocal and very controversial for his time for calling out the Vietnam War, the bullshit media, the Israeli military, and the Israeli government. And he was basically saying that we are living in a military-industrial complex. And the only things that we hear with the journalism and the media at the time is propaganda. We hear about conflicts around the world only when it fits into the narrative fed to us by the military-industrial complex. He's got plenty of examples, but the one that I'll bring up to you was the Cambodian genocide and also what was happening in East Timor. Both of them were occupied countries that were going through conflict and genocide, only the media and the news agencies, the newspapers, all of it, all the outlets only focused on one, and that was Cambodia. And his point was this: the reason why everyone focuses on Cambodia is because that is a direct correlation to what the war machine wants. They need us to focus on how bad and unfair life is for the Cambodians, and because we want to go over there. We're going to save everyone. We're going to save everyone. We're going to save them all. We need to go there. We need to stop communism, and we really need to make sure that we continue this great thing we got going on. Now, why is that? Why did we completely ignore this nation over here and focus on that nation? Well, obviously because he's right. It's not like this is the first time or the last time. I mean, this happens all the time. We talk about all the crazy things that are happening in Africa at the same time that we decide to go to Afghanistan. And I know everyone's going to be like, that was retribution, but there weren't Afghanis on that plane. If there was a plane at all, there weren't Afghanis. There were Saudi Arabians, so why weren't we going to Saudi Arabia? I'll think about that for a while, and we'll get back to that later. Anyway, the other interesting thing that Noam Chomsky talks about is anarchism. Now, typically, most of us are like, anarchy doesn't sound like a good deal. Wild West, shootouts, bank robberies, house robberies, kidnapping, debauchery everywhere. I don't want to live like that. I like my kids getting an education. I like having technology. Well, I'm here to tell you that anarchy actually means something else. Let's go over that. Now, what is anarchism? It's an anti-authoritarian political and social philosophy that rejects hierarchies deemed unjust and advocates their replacement with self-managed, self-governed societies. based on voluntary cooperative institutions. These institutions are described as stateless societies. So it's not that there is no government or governing. The governing comes from us, from the people themselves, and not from this system that was created and perpetuated by backhanded deals. Are there any examples of anarchy that we can look at just to see, like, God, maybe we would totally suck at it. Maybe we would fail. Maybe we would fail to the point that people feel like they're slaves in society and their education is lacking. This is the last generation. What if they are so lost and sad by all of this, they become like a nation of drug addicts? Like, what if we fail at it that bad? Well, let's just see. Maybe there's a society or group of people that have been trying this out. And, oh, shit, there we go, got one. Have you ever heard of Tehran, Mexico? Well, Tehran, Mexico, basically, you could describe them as an area of Mexico that completely fit that bill. Everything was lacking. They felt like they were living in a war zone. They're governed by a bunch of corrupt politicians that were hanging out and in bed with drug traffickers. The drug traffickers turned the area into a bloodbath where people were, involved in shootouts and gang activity. There were kidnappings, murders, the whole 9 yards. It was terrible, and finally people had enough, because every time they turned around to look at the elected official that was there to help ease some of the suffering and solve some of the problems of society, they realized that dude's got a nice house, but nothing has changed for me. Hanging out with some really cool people over there, but still, shit's hard at, my level. So they finally said, F it. You know what we're going to do? We're going to create a self-autonomous zone, and we're going to kick out politicians, and on top of that, we're going to kick out law enforcement, and we're just going to give it the old college try ourselves. And guess what happened? The exact opposite of what you would normally think would happen. You'd think that, it might get a little bit worse, but that's not exactly how it went down at all. In fact, it improved greatly, and it improved to the point where they're like, F it, we're not going back to the old way. We'll stay this way forever. And it's been about 11 years now since they created this self-autonomous zone, kicked the politicians and law enforcement out, and man, wow, it improved. How much did it improve? So what ended up happening with this town? Crime went down. They started making improvements to their town by way of roads and sidewalks. They improved the schools, and it also improved their economy. And then on top of that, guess what they started focusing on? The environment. Because this whole showdown all came because of loggers and corrupt politicians and how they were letting things go down that the townspeople did not agree with at all. So yeah, in the end, it worked out for them. It worked out so well that they've been doing it for about 10 or 11 years now, and I don't think they're looking back to going back to the way they were. Why do I think that? Because they have checkpoints set up. Once you enter this region of Mexico, you literally stop at a checkpoint. They just make sure that you are, one, not law enforcement. They don't want you there at the fuck all. They don't want you there at all. And two, that you aren't trying to promote some political agenda. And they make sure that your car doesn't have any political stickers on it, and that you're not, trying to put propaganda out when you get there. And if you're cool with that, if you're cool with not being part of law enforcement or promoting a political agenda, and if you're cool with freedom of speech and doing things your own way, they welcome you in. You can come in, check out their town, have some lunch, maybe, talk to the local people, and be on your way if you want to be. Pretty awesome. So that's my question to you. Do you think that anarchy can save us? Is it, in the end, the way? If you really look at what anarchy is, not just, a mosh pit of degeneracy, shooting and killing people, if you look at what the true definition is, do you think that that might be our one and only chance? Probably not our only chance. I'm not going to go that crazy into it, but I think that it's our most viable chance at this point. Because in all honesty, can we fuck it up more than it already is? Probably not. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, leave some comments. Let me know down below. Do you think it's an option? What are other options? There's got to be something better than this. All right, bye.